always great to have you with us here on a Tuesday night, and we begin tonight with that sudden resignation of America's acting border chief after just 2 months on the job. John Sanders has now resigned. Tonight, the president saying he doesn't think he ever spoke to him. And this all comes amid the reports of hundreds of migrant children living in awful conditions at a facility in Clint, Texas. Sources telling ABC News tonight Sanders' departure has, quote, nothing to do with what was uncovered involving those children. ABC's chief national correspondent Matt Gutman leading us off.
Tonight, amid headlines of horrific conditions for those 300 migrant children moved from that Texas facility, now that stunning resignation. The president distancing himself from John Sanders, the CBP commissioner he appointed in April.
I don't think I've ever spoken to him, actually. No, we have some very good people running it.
Sources tell ABC News Sanders' resignation had nothing to do with revelations that the Border Patrol housed migrant children in Texas in conditions human rights lawyers who recently visited the facility likened to torture facilities. A Border Patrol station in Clint, Texas, reportedly denied about 300 children soap and toothpaste, according to lawyers who went inside and spoke with them. The children were found filthy and sleeping on the concrete floor with only mylar sheets. The CBP has denied most of the allegations, and while the agency said earlier this week it removed 250 children, overnight we learned about 100 more were transferred there. The CBP saying the overcrowding was the problem. That outgoing border chief, John Sanders, recently railing at facilities just like Clint.
Children should not have to sleep on the ground, huddled under mylar blankets. This is the United States of America. We can and we must do better as a country.
There are currently about 13,500 children in U.S. custody. One reason Congress is now debating a $4.5 billion emergency funding bill.
Hopefully today, they'll be passing the bill. It's a humane bill, and that's what we want. It's all about humanity. It's about helping children.
All this as this graphic video is now emerging. A gut-wrenching reminder of the perils migrants face. Mexican authorities say this father and his 23-month-old daughter drowned in the Rio Grande near Brownsville, Texas. The father reportedly putting his daughter on the U.S. side of the riverbank, and when he went to ferry the girl's mother across too, the toddler jumped after him. He reportedly tried to rescue her, stuffing her in his shirt, but it's believed they were both swept away.
So let's get to Matt Gutman, who's with us live tonight. He's reported extensively on this. And Matt, so many questions about who's in charge. You have an acting Homeland Security Secretary, an acting head at ICE, and now this acting border chief who resigned today. You have new reporting tonight on who might replace him.
That's right, David. Government officials tell us that the president's likely choice for CBP commissioner is Mark Morgan. Now, Mark Morgan is a former Fox News contributor. He's acting director of ICE and one of the people pushing for raids against undocumented migrants in U.S. cities last week. The president called those raids off, David.
Matt Gutman leading us off tonight. Matt, thank you. We're going to turn next tonight to the severe weather threat for 20 million Americans as we go into the night, as much of the east, right into the northeast, in fact, braces for scorching heat as well. It follows 4 reported tornadoes in just the past 24 hours, including this massive supercell in Charleston, West Virginia, and time-lapse showing this fierce storm rolling in over Atlanta. That was something. And new images tonight of this EF1 tornado ripping apart a marina in Gilbertsville, Kentucky. Chief Meteorologist Ginger Z is tracking the storms coming tonight. Ginger, what are you watching?
David, I'm watching a radar that has parts of 7 states in a severe thunderstorm watch. That means you could see winds in excess of 70 miles per hour anywhere there in pink from Lincoln, Nebraska, over to Holland, Michigan, or South Bend, Indiana. That's tonight. Then we watch the jet stream bubble north, almost to Canada and beyond. That means a big ridge, a lot of heat. Philadelphia could see 95 by Friday. New York City could see our first 90 of the season tomorrow. If we do that, it's been the longest stretch in 5 years that we've waited to hit 90, David.
All right, Ginger Z with us tonight. Ginger, thank you. There is new reporting tonight after that deadly helicopter crash landing in New York City. Of course, you'll remember the chopper seen flying erratically in bad weather that night before slamming onto the top of a high-rise in Midtown Manhattan, not far from Times Square or from Trump Tower. Tonight, the new report on the calls the pilot made in those final moments. We now know what happened, and here's ABC's Ariel Reshef.
Tonight, preliminary findings from the NTSB indicating the pilot was lost before that fatal helicopter crash atop a Manhattan skyscraper earlier this month. The final minutes of the doomed flight captured by witnesses on the ground. 58-year-old pilot Tim McCormick seen here dipping erratically in and out of the clouds. Before taking off, McCormick mentioning to heliport staff he saw a 20-minute window to make it out due to bad weather. But about 5 to 7 minutes after departure, officials say McCormick made a request to return to the heliport and then radioed that he did not know where he was. Authorities say he did not report any mechanical issues.
This pilot was not certified to fly in instrument conditions, was not certified to fly in clouds, nor had he filed the appropriate flight plan.
The helicopter ultimately slamming into the roof of a 54-story Midtown building, killing McCormick and forcing a mass evacuation. No one else was hurt. David, the aircraft was significantly damaged in that crash, but the NTSB does not report any mechanical issues in their investigation so far. David?
Ariel Reshef with us tonight as well. Thank you, Ariel. And next this evening, the escalating standoff between the U.S. and Iran. President Trump threatening Iran now with obliteration. And Iran's president saying the time to negotiate is over, calling the White House, quote, afflicted by mental retardation. ABC senior national correspondent Terry Moran is at the White House tonight.
Amid escalating threats and talk of war, the commander-in-chief was asked in the Oval Office,
do you have an exit strategy for Iran if war does break out?
You're not going to need an exit strategy. I don't need exit strategies.
The president's swagger comes on a day of furious back and forth between Washington and Tehran. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani defiant, rejecting any talks with the U.S. The White House is afflicted by mental retardation and does not know what to do, he said. Rouhani sending a clear signal, no talks without sanctions relief. The president fired back on Twitter with a threat. Any attack by Iran on anything American will be met with great and overwhelming force. In some areas, overwhelming will mean obliteration. But later, Trump once again held out an offer to negotiate.
Their country's not doing well economically at all. That can be changed very quickly, very easily.
So let's get to Terry Moran with us live tonight from the White House. And Terry, there's word tonight of someone new who will be fielding tough questions for the president, likely on Iran and other issues, but she's familiar with the White House.
She is, David. Succeeding Sarah Sanders, Stephanie Grisham. She is a longtime member of the Trump team, having joined the campaign back in 2015. She's been serving in the White House as First Lady Melania Trump's press secretary, was the first lady who tweeted out her appointment as press secretary, suggesting in that tweet she'll serve in both capacities. She's also been named communications director, expanding her power as she's tough and loyal, just like her predecessor. David?
Terry Moran tonight. Thank you, Terry. Next tonight, President Trump is now reacting to a new allegation of sexual assault. This New York City woman, a well-known columnist, claiming it happened in a department store dressing room 23 years ago. The president saying she's not his type. He denies it ever happened, and here's ABC's chief national affairs correspondent Tom Yamas tonight.
President Trump says she's totally lying, but longtime advice columnist E. Jean Carroll insists her story is the truth, that the president sexually assaulted her in the mid-90s in a dressing room at Bergdorf Goodman.
The minute I was in there, he shut the door and pushed me up against the wall and bang my head on the wall and kissed me. It was so shocking. He put his shoulder against me to hold me against the wall. And at that point, I realized that I was in a very difficult situation.
In her new book, What Do We Need Men For?, Carroll describes in graphic detail how the alleged sexual assault got even worse until she was able to escape.
It was against my will, and it hurt, and it was a fight.
President Trump first said he didn't even know Carroll, though she did give us this photo of the two meeting in the late 80s.
Standing with my coat on in a line. Give me a break. With my back to the camera. I have no idea who she is.
The president now telling The Hill, I'll say it with great respect. Number one, she's not my type. Number two, it never happened. It never happened, okay?
I love that. I am so glad I am not his type.
It's not the first time President Trump has disparaged the looks of a woman accusing him of sexual misconduct. This is what candidate Trump said during the campaign about a woman who accused him of once groping her on a plane.
Believe me, she would not be my first choice, that I can tell you. Man. You don't know. That would not be my first choice.
Now, E. Jean Carroll becomes one of at least 17 women who have accused President Trump of sexual misconduct or assault. The president says they're all liars.
Now, Carol says she never reported the incident to police. She was afraid of retaliation. But ABC News spoke with two of her friends who did not want to be named. They back her account, telling us she confided in them right after the alleged incident. David?
All right, Tom Yamas always digging, and we appreciate it. In other news tonight, to the Girl Scouts camping tragedy that took the life of a Girl Scout. 11-year-old Isabel Meyer dying when a massive tree came down. In fact, a number of other Girl Scouts were hurt when they were all pinned. The county sheriff fighting back tears. And here's ABC's Eva Pilgrim.
Tonight, a family and community mourning the death of 11-year-old Isabel Meyer after a freak accident at this Girl Scout camp in Southwest Indiana. She was out with a group just before noon Monday, hiking down a steep gravel hill heading to the mess hall when tragedy came crashing down.
I'm at Camp Cook, Girl Scout camp. Okay. And we've had a tree fall on a group of girls.
The 40-foot tree hitting Meyer on the head and abdomen, trapping her and 3 others under it. She died at the hospital.
Unfortunately, the girl died. We prepared for this. It's never easy.
A 10-year-old girl and 2 adult women were also injured. The camp along the Ohio River near the town of Cannleton, the area plagued by heavy rain for weeks. The fallen tree appeared uprooted.
David, the camp is closed while they investigate. The other Girl Scout has been treated and released. The 2 adults are still in the hospital. David?
Eva, thank you. Now to newly released images tonight of a terrifying police shootout in New Orleans. Officers responding to a robbery, confronting armed suspects inside a CVS. An intense gun battle ensues. We warn you this is difficult, and here's ABC's Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas now.
He's right here.
You're watching an armed robbery of a New Orleans pharmacy in progress. As these 2 suspects, guns drawn, attempt to steal that bag full of prescription drugs. The pharmacy surveillance video capturing it all. What happens next shows the dangers officers face at a moment's notice.
Stop. Get on the ground.
Officer Chad Clark draws his gun and walks into the store. He soon sees the armed suspects, warning his partner. Within seconds, shots fired. Officer Clark is hit in the shoulder. His own body camera records him being knocked off balance. His partner's body camera shows him falling to a knee. The officers stand their ground as the suspects try to make an escape, guns blazing. Dozens of shots fired. Both suspects are wounded, both eventually caught. Police today declaring the officers' actions were justified.
This incident also shows how brave and courageous our officers are in doing what it is that they were sworn to do.
David, Officer Clark is recovering at home. Because police shootings are often so controversial, more departments are using body cameras for transparency. A 2016 Justice Department survey showed nearly half of law enforcement agencies are using body cameras. And David, that number is growing.
Pierre Thomas tonight. Pierre, thank you. As the U.S. women's soccer team advances to the World Cup quarterfinals, President Trump is now weighing in a new interview on the team's pursuit of equal pay. The women are paid much less than the men's national team. The president saying, quote, he hasn't taken a position, but added, quote, it has to do with the economics, how much money the team brings in. In that same interview, the president also weighing in on reparations for descendants of slaves. It was the subject of a House Judiciary Committee hearing that we reported on earlier this month here and has become an issue in the race for 2020. The president saying, quote, I don't see it happening. And tonight, 9/11 first responders say they had a, quote, great meeting with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell after a public feud over the Victims' Compensation Fund. It followed that emotional hearing with Jon Stewart blasting Congress for threatening that funding and some for not even showing up at the hearing. The first responders called today's meeting, quote, productive. Senator McConnell said he hopes to pass that funding renewal by August. There are new developments in the search for that missing college student in Utah tonight. Police just today releasing the last known images as she was leaving the airport in Salt Lake City. Here's ABC's Clayton Sandell.
Tonight, police releasing new photos of 23-year-old Mackenzie Lewick arriving at the Salt Lake City airport 8 days ago.
She did not appear to talk to anyone in the airport.
From there, police say the University of Utah senior took a rideshare to a North Salt Lake City park. There, she met with a mystery person at 3 a.m. Then the trail goes cold.
The description we have is vague. It could have been a male or a female. We've exhausted all avenues of determining that information.
Police say they're serving search warrants and want to know if Lewick had any secret cell phones, social media accounts, or dating profiles that might offer new clues, including whether or not she knew the person she met.
The insinuation is that perhaps she was leading some sort of double life.
We don't have any indication of that. We're just, we want to make sure that we're covering all of our bases.
Tonight, police insist that rideshare driver is not a suspect. They have 6 detectives working this case and have gotten more than 125 tips, but still no sign of Mackenzie Lewick. David?
Clayton, thank you. When we finally tonight hear America Strong, history made today. The first living Iraq War veteran to receive the Medal of Honor. Army Staff Sergeant David Bellavia, there on the left, originally from Buffalo, New York. He served in the Iraq War. He was a squad leader in Operation Phantom Fury. Their mission on the night of November 10th, 2004, to clear a block of 12 buildings where 6 or more insurgents were believed to be hiding. And he describes that night.
So we start the process of methodically going door to door, house to house, looking for something, and it wasn't coming up. Building after building after building, nothing. And we walked right into an ambush with bell-fed machine guns.
Sergeant Bellavia was credited with risking his own life by braving enemy fire to save his entire squad. His platoon members remember that day. Sergeant First Class Colin Fitz.
That were it not for David Bellavia, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
He was just 29 years old, and today Sergeant Bellavia became the first living Medal of Honor recipient from the Iraq War.
The Medal of Honor to Staff Sergeant David G. Bellavia, United States Army, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty.
President Trump placing the medal around his neck. Moments later, in the East Room, 32 American service members who fought with Sergeant Bellavia sharing the stage.
I never thought I'd see love on a battlefield, but you see people doing things for each other that they would never, ever do in any other circumstance, and it is a sight to see. It'll change your life forever.
And today, he shared his honor with them. And we salute Army Staff Sergeant David Bellavia tonight and his platoon. Thank you for watching. I'm David Muir. Hope to see you tomorrow. Good night.